And this is without the hammer of the neocon. Look how you think Murdoch News Network, who just got smoked in the speakers thing, and everything they told you was a lie and would have led to the destruction of this country if you had followed their, oh, you're the agents of chaos. All weekend, revved up in such a neocon, you can't even watch it. You can't even watch it. It's obnoxious. They want us in every war all over the place, American troops, American planes everywhere, and none of their kids serve. Or very few, but none of the STARS kids serve. Go out of their way not to serve. No, yeah, but they want to send you all over there and want to send all your money. The border comes first. I gave a speech on Friday down in Carolina. We're going to have the video. I just laid down to folks, hey, the debt crisis, and another huge article, but they can't sell the bonds, the tsunami of treasuries, you can't sell them. The financial crisis we have interlocked with the invasion of our country with 10 million invaders. And now Axios, one of their top stories, is that, oh, the public school system is about to be overwhelmed with new migrant children. Like the poor African-American and Hispanic American citizen children in the public schools, what they need right now is more chaos and have to get more teachers that know foreign languages and have to go for more money they don't have and make their own learning environment even crappier than it is. That's exactly what they need. That's terrific to American citizen children who are African American and Hispanic. Let's do that. Let's make it even better. Let's make their time even more trying. Any African American Hispanic parent that votes for these criminals in office, and by the way, not only do you have to secure the border and deport 10 million, you must, I don't care about impeachment anymore, you bring criminal charges against every official that had anything to do with this. You aided and abetted an invasion of our nation, and you must pay criminally.
Steve Bannon, ladies and gentlemen, throwing down hard, and I like every second of it. I love every second of it. Steve Bannon is my kind of people. Shout out to the entire War Room posse. The entire War Room posse out there in the audience, everybody there at War Room who makes the machine run, Grace Chong, Maureen Bannon, and last but not least, the fearless warrior, Steve Bannon, Stephen K. Bannon. We thank you for streaming the podcast every night and continuing to see the positive impact it's having on the audience over there at Rumble. Many people still haven't seen me yet. They haven't heard me yet. They haven't come across me yet. And we continuously get feedback that as they do start to find my content, they appreciate the real, raw, unadulterated truth that we have here on Please Call Me Crazy. So with that being said, welcome back to another episode of Please Call Me Crazy. Brought to you by Free People Radio and powered by our favorite sponsor, Tireget.com. That's Tireget.com. You have to buy tires from somebody. You might as well buy them from us and help fund the movement, help support the movement. We believe in the freedom of movement, and that's exactly what the establishment wants to take from you now. I am your host, Royce White, here in the belly of the beast, Minneapolis, Minnesota, for episode 124. Today, if you notice, there's a change in the color of the thumbnail. Our red thumbnails will start to signify our news-based show or our current events-based show. And so we want to be able to organize the channel because there will be more channels to come in the very near future. I believe I'm trying to solidify a deal where I work with the great John Fredericks to have a show on his news network, although he and I are have been slow to pull the trigger on that because I tend to use profanity. And, when you're on national syndicated radio, you can't use profanity. We have certain laws against such things. I'm still going to do the podcast. And on the podcast, I will probably fly off the handle, depending on how crazy things get. I don't see how things can get much more crazy than they are right now. And I'm trying my best not to use profanity, not because I agree that profanity should be the hallmark of our Christian identity, which it certainly has become as a sort of subsequent result of this idea that posh, politeness, polished sort of civil convivialness is a true sign of American patriotism or Christianity. I don't agree with that. I think in times of war, I think in times when your elites have become as corrupt as our elites have become, there's a certain sort of brash, smash mouth, no nonsense, sound the alarm type of approach that we need to have and be willing to digest. However, with that being said, the one reason that I'm starting to think about not using profanity is because the content is having such a successful impact and resonance with the audience that people want to share the podcast with their children, and then I take that as a significant honor. I really do. I don't take that lightly. That I have the fortune to communicate and articulate the things going on in our world at a level with which people want to share it with their children. And if I get a chance to speak to the children, I will. Now, when I talk to my young players, sometimes I have to use profanity to convey a sense of urgency to them as well, or at least a lot of coaches will do that. Some coaches don't. So when I cuss on the podcast, if you have your children listening, I apologize to your children, and cover your ears. And Uncle Royce is not condoning that you use filthy language any and everywhere. But surely, if somebody is wronging you, or if somebody is attempting to bring harm to you, you use whatever means necessary to defend yourself, to survive, and to profess the truth. With that being said, we're going to get into a few more current events here. I'm going to use a few video clips. I like to use the video clips. The technology is good for video clips, and I just want to say before I begin to reiterate about an idea over the last few episodes. I'm not condemning sports themselves. And I had people give me feedback and say, well, what about you playing basketball? Or what about, you coaching young kids to play basketball? Shouldn't they just be focused on the crisis at hand? Like the great Steve Bannon surely is sounding the alarm on in that video, and I love every minute of it. There's nothing wrong with playing sports. I mean, who would I be to look at the crisis of obesity and lack of physical fitness here in our country and say, don't be physically active. Don't pursue physical fitness. Don't indulge in physical activity. And sports is a great way to exercise. Sports is a great way to keep up with your physical fitness. Be fit, be active, move around, move your body. I completely prescribe that actually as a remedy for a lot of things, not just obesity problems or general health issues, but psychological issues and as well as spiritual ones. Moving your body is one of the most natural things that humans can do. In fact, we start every episode by saying the establishment wants to limit your freedom of movement. And the freedom of movement won't just be putting gasoline in your car. Before you know it, your actual freedom to move about anywhere in the country will be in jeopardy. And I truly believe that. I mean, everybody kind of thinks of having a 15-minute city, or I think it's a 15-minute cities. Everybody thinks of having 15-minute cities as some great improvement. I kind of look at it as people accepting their own enslavement and this sort of psychological brainwashing of technology and technological advancement. Hey, we're going to restrict you down to a 15-minute little area, and aren't you so grateful that this wonder of technology and architecture and industrialization provides you this? It's like, okay, why would I want to sign up to only be able to go in a 15-minute radius? I mean, what if I want to, I don't know. My uncle, who I've admitted on the show before, my great uncle Alfred Aury was the dean of the dentistry school here at the University of Minnesota, and then he finished his work at Columbia before his death, and he is considered to be one of the most influential dentist or medicine practitioners in American history. And Professor Penn and I always joke because he was a Mason, and he had his office was at the Masonic Lodge here in Minneapolis. His personal office was in the lodge, which means he was pretty high up the trough in the Masonry order, and doesn't bode well for him, at least where I stand looking back on history. Now, I can't speak to everything that goes on within the Masons, like I can't speak to everything that goes on within the CIA, like I can't speak to everything that goes on within the church, like I can't speak to everything that goes on within the Republican Party or whatever the case may be, whatever enclave or layer of society There are people who are evil. There are people who are fighting for good. And I believe that to be true of all factions of our society. Wherever there is evil present, good is present in some sense. I truly believe that. Even if it's in an individual and in their own internal struggle between good and evil, wherever evil is present, God is always there as well. You just have to embrace him and find him and submit to him. But anyway, my great uncle was famous for being a walker. I mean, he just liked to go out and walk. He would take his entire class at the University of Minnesota and they would just walk for 90 miles. And yeah, he was a Quaker. He was a Norwegian Quaker, and he can't, he was an immigrant. So I get it. He comes from a different time, but moving, walking, being outside, being in nature is a very healthy thing for human beings to do. So I'm not trying to demonize sports, but what I don't like, and maybe it's even a little personal because I'm an athlete. I never respected people who talk about sports. I never respected people who gossip about sports. I never respected people who gossip about music or talk about music or musicians for a living. Just there's so many. There is the sport, there is the arena of entertainment, and then there are the layers and layers upon industry that we've built talking and gossiping about entertainment. I love music. I've spoken about my love for Sinatra in that era, and I'm an avid enthusiast of many different genres of music, partially because I spent a good portion of time producing music and writing music and playing music and being involved with bands. And hopefully when the show gets a little bigger, you'll start to hear us incorporate original music and original soundtrack, original music, original theme songs and things like that into the podcast and into Free People Radio, because I think music helps convey a message. It helps provide something essential to content. So I'm not against music. I'm not against sports. I'm definitely not against entertainment, right? Go to the circus, but let's not spend 24 hours talking about what we saw at the circus and if it was good or bad. That's unnecessary. And, even I think about it from a sports standpoint with the NBA, and I go, would the game be better without the commentators? I don't know. Having the live audience and hearing their reactions, I get it. That there's something to that. A little bit of commentary is good. Sometimes the commentary is god awful and it's actually kind of annoying. But hey, most of the commentary is fine, right? But the 24-hour news cycle that they've created on ESPN to talk about the game is just mind blowing. And now because we have YouTube and all these other alternative media sources, now everybody's gonna talk about sports nonstop. It's overkill, and it is actually very far away from sports themselves and physical activity and physical fitness. Hey, you want to do jujitsu? Do jujitsu. I love it. Prepare for combat. You may need it one day soon, in fact. You want to do Thai boxing or kickboxing? That's great. You want to go and learn firearms training and work on your CQB or whatever the case may be? Fine, perfect. You want to spend time shooting at the range? That's sort of a sport in some ways, although it's useful for self-defense as well. That's great, right? But let's not spend a lot of time. And here's the thing about politics. Here's the thing about why this show and talking about politics is appropriate. Because politics is actually the arena of ideas. There is no other way to do politics other than to have discussion. The sole point of politics is, number one, policy, but we arrive at proper, useful policy through oratory and oratory and let's say community conversation. So politics, and they've, don't get me wrong, they've created a 24-hour kind of entertainment, business model and corporatocracy around the entertainment of politics, and they want politics to be entertaining, which is why I started off with the great Steve Bannon and War Room. If you want real news, if you want real politics, real conversation without the happy talk, you go to War Room. You go find War Room. You listen to War Room. They took them down off of YouTube, but you can always watch War Room on Rumble, and you can always watch War Room live streamed on Getter. And that's a very, very good place to start. People always say, what are you reading? What are you listening to? Well, I was reading The Best and the Brightest. I left my book out there on the broadcast table from my interview yesterday with Hotep Jesus. But you know, I listen to Steve a great deal. I listen to Alex a great deal. Me, actually, I spend a lot of my time going back and doing historical research through documentaries and footage that came before what I would say is the strong arm on the mainstream media of very politically slanted coverage, right? And I'm not saying that the media wasn't always sort of a security state and CIA psyop in some regards, that it wasn't a mechanism of control, because we have declassified record that very early on in our security state or intelligence community, they had uh, ambitions to use media to control the narrative. So I get that. But there was a time in this country where the media was a little more straight up and down, in my opinion. Where we've come to now is absolutely abhorrent in every sense of the word. The media is completely slanted. It's completely politicized, and it's dangerously anti-American, to say the very least. So continue to do your sports. I mean, if it's pickleball, I don't care what you do. You know, play sports, but don't talk about sports all day. And the reason I'm saying don't talk about sports is there is action we can take. And I want to start here after listening to Steve and making my clarifications about sports and physical fitness, because I do want all of you to be physically fit. I do want all of you to be active and moving around and preparing your body for combat and survival, because that may actually be necessary in the very near future. But there is action we could take, and people say, "Well, what's the solution?" You know, you talk. What's the solution? Well, let me help you. We had some technical difficulties with Dan Schultz's interview, which I'm very upset about, because I thought it was a very good podcast. It was balanced, it was measured, it was succinct, and we explored some ideas. We went out into some deep places, but we also were very methodical about the tact for this upcoming election cycle, and it revolves around the precinct strategy. And if you didn't hear me say it before, I'll say it again for those who may be new. There is something we can do. And because I'm saying this in favor of Republican Party politics does not mean I don't see the corruption of Republican Party politics. In fact, the Donald Trump movement, the MAGA movement, was started um, pointing out the corruption of Republican Party politics, the civil war that they used to indict the America First congressmen and women or anybody else in the country for the current discord in the Republican Party, is exactly the reason why you should get involved. And that's how the psyop really works when it comes to the mainstream media. MSNBC sees that the Republican Party has a few truth tellers that really want to try and change the status quo, and they demonize them as radicals and extremists. In fact, I have a video that I'm going to show you in a moment of Nancy Pelosi saying that exact thing, which should tell you a lot, right? But the Republican Party is the entry point, and I'm telling you to go into the Republican Party, to go to precinctstrategy.com, to go into the Republican Party, because the Republican Party has a certain BPOU system, mechanism, all across the country. And the BPOUs and the delegates are the people who decide who gets the endorsement from the party in its respective area of the country, state, the entire thing. So the BPOU and the delegate system is very important. The caucuses are very important. Find out when your state's caucus is. You can go into the caucus without even being a member of the Republican Party in many states. So even if you don't join the Republican Party now, ahead of the election or ahead of the election cycle, which starts well before November, right? In Minnesota, our caucuses are coming up in February, right? So that's about, right this week, I'm going to be putting my foot to the gas pedal, pedal to the metal in terms of getting out and getting the delegates prepared and making them aware of my Senate bid, right? So I can try and get that Senate campaign or that Senate endorsement. But who is endorsed by the candidates is important for one simple reason. If you get the endorsement and you have the fortune to not be primaried, you get a clear runway to start to go to work on the narrative with the Democrats or whoever your Democrat opponent would be. And that's obviously something that good. Now, this is also used in the reverse sometimes where people say you shouldn't primary a candidate even if they're not America first because it takes away from the resources to go and into their general election. And we'd rather have any Republican than a Democrat. That ain't true. And that's where the America First movement is coming into real conflict with the establishment Republican rhino neocon elite or party higher ups. We don't believe that having any Republican is better than having a Democrat. That's where party politics go too far. That's where playing partisan politics becomes a scam. And especially when the Republicans that we're talking about do us no more justice than the Democrats do in many respects. Actually, again, they come together as a uniparty, and they put cultural wedge issues to present an illusion of conflict or some type of friction between the two parties when really they're just stealing our money. And they're getting us caught up in the wedge issues while they steal our money. $5 trillion. On the right, you got the military industrial complex, 2 to 3 trillion a year. On the left, you got the healthcare, Medicaid, Medicare, another 2 to 3 trillion a year, right? $6 trillion, whack it up amongst 4,000 people. You got good eating, right? You got good eating for, a good eating, reliable, predictable, consistent business, which is why term limits would be a great thing, right? So the precinctstrategy.com, go to precinctstrategy.com. Don't ask me about action. Don't ask me about solutions. If you haven't been to precinctstrategy.com, and if you're not willing to, surrender your prejudgments. Surrender that nihilism about the political process. We may get cheated. We may lose. But you lose 100% of the battles that you don't show up to fight. I tell my young guys, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. You lose 100% of the time when you don't show up. And part of politics, party politics, part of any domain of our society, a huge part of it is just showing up. In a representative democracy, in a constitutional republic, how we do politics here in America, half of the battle is just showing up. Who's going to show up? Well, we know that the elites of our country are very good at picking, at selecting, at getting their people to show up, getting certain people to show up, people who do their bidding. We have to start to show up as well. What Steve Bannon is talking about here in this opening clip, and I'm going to play it for you again just in case anybody is just joining the show. And when I go to these clips and when I do these news shows, again, look for the red thumbnail. We tried to color code them along with the color palette of Please Call Me Crazy. So you have a lot of these similar colors that will be displayed in the attire and the apparel on the show. I mean, in the store, on the apparel in the store. When that is up and running. We're still dealing with some technical difficulties on our Ready Dropship platform with that, but nevertheless, never mind that. It'll be there when it's there. Hopefully when it's there, you find time to stop by freepeopleradio.com, pick up a few items, contribute a few dollars, and that is what it is. We're not doing this for money. We'd like to break even so that we can not go bankrupt and keep giving you content, but nobody should be getting rich off of politics or culture or evangelical work, in my opinion. So when I do these shows with the clips, sometimes I'll go back to a clip, and this one by Steve Bannon just fits in perfectly. I mean, I messaged Steve, and we haven't even talked for the last week or so. He was busy. I think he was, doing a speech there on the East Coast, and had some family gathering that he and the clan were the group were doing. We haven't even really talked in the last week. And I think it's just it's strange when you have friends or you have, mentors or you have people and you see the world in a very similar fashion, and then you just stop by their show to catch up on what they're talking about, and they're saying the exact same thing you're saying with a different tone and a different hour on a different set of topics, but down the exact same line of country. And that's exactly what Steve is talking about here. He's talking about how, they're ratcheting up the war machine there on Fox News, and they're basically attacking America first like they always do. And he's just saying, look, you can barely even listen to it. It's obnoxious. It's obnoxious. And he calls the neocons out right from the jump. Right. And he also calls out another very important scam that's being run right now is that the immigration now, the illegal immigration is going to overwhelm the public school system. So we're supposed to let, you know, unlimited people into the country. And when it overwhelms the school system, we are supposed to do what exactly? And who does this affect? Black and Hispanic communities that already have significant trouble with their public schooling. And do we need a reform of public schooling? Absolutely. Let's start with what we teach our kids. Civics, American civics, civic duty, that should go back into the curriculum by mandate, by government mandate. Every single school that gets federal money should be having their children take American civics class in their formative education. Every single school that gets federal money. If you got a charter school or if you got a private school and you for some reason you don't think American civics is important, hey, I guess you can do what you want to do. But for me, I would say American civics is probably the most important thing that we need to reinstill back into our children's education. So I want to play you the clip one more time if I can. Bear with me here. Let's see if I can get this up and running by myself. Oh, there we go.
And this is about the hammer of the neocon. Look how you think Murdoch News Network, who just got smoked in the speaker thing, and everything they told you was a lie and would have led to the destruction of this country if you had followed their, oh, you're the agents of chaos. All weekend, revved up in such a neocon, you can't even watch it. You can't even watch it. It's obnoxious. They want us in every war all over the place, American troops, American planes everywhere, and none of their kids serve. Or very few, but none of the STARS kids serve. Go out of their way not to serve. No, yeah, but they want to send you all over there and want to send all your money. The border comes first. I gave a speech on Friday down in Carolina. We're going to have the video. I just laid down to folks, hey, the debt crisis, and another huge article, but they can't sell the bonds, the tsunami of treasuries, you can't sell them. The financial crisis we have interlocked with the invasion of our country with 10 million invaders. And now Axios, one of their top stories, is that, oh, the public school system is about to be overwhelmed with new migrant children. Like the poor African-American and Hispanic American citizen children in the public schools, what they need right now is more chaos and have to get more teachers that know foreign languages and have to go for more money they don't have and make their own learning environment even crappier than it is. That's exactly what they need. That's terrific to American citizen children who are African American and Hispanic. Let's do that. Let's make it even better. Let's make their time even more trying.
Throwing down exactly as he should. Steve Bannon is my tribe of people. I mean, we're at a point in American history where there is no more black, there is no more white, there is no more, there is no more Hispanic, there is no more Asian. And I know he's pointing out an injustice of sorts that's being done or waged against black and Hispanic communities. And it's worthy to note. But in the final analysis, there is no more race. I mean, we deal with race in terms of its historical significance, and we can deal with it in terms of how the establishment wants to use it or wants to weaponize it to co-opt us or to convince us or to sell us a dream or a bag of wooden nickels even about our American citizenship and the value. But people would look at Steve Bannon, and I see criticism all the time that says, hey, why are you following Steve Bannon around? He's a white supremacist. First, I know right away you've never heard Steve Bannon talk. And secondly, I don't look at color in that way. The first measure of whether or not I want to align myself with you is what you're willing to sacrifice to speak the truth, what you're willing to give up in the interest of freedom. First, your own individual freedom, but then in concentric circles, with your family and your faith and your country and your nation and the citizenship as a whole. What are you willing to give up? What are you willing to surrender? What are you willing to sacrifice? That word should be central for Christians. What are you willing to sacrifice in the interest of the truth. Steve Bannon is a part of my tribe. Love him to death. It's a great man right there. The neocons, they want us to go to war everywhere. And if you think that we should be spending time on anything else other than sorting out our political worldview and where we're going to support, who we're going to support based on the things that are happening in the world, then you're not really paying attention to the world. And then your citizenship is squandered. And whether you're black or Hispanic or you're white or you're Asian or whatever your enclave of demographic in the country is, LGBTQ, women, old, young, I don't know, whatever, it doesn't matter. Whatever your enclave is, there is a political revolution taking place right now on the world stage. And that which happens globally will affect you locally. And if you fail to realize that, whatever you think you're doing in your life will eventually be systematically co-opted by forces unbeknownst to you. Now, if you're all in for the globalist agenda, then those forces are beknownst to you, and you probably like the way where things are headed, or maybe you're a nihilist and you don't care what happens. You just want to see the world burn. And I take extreme offense to the MSNBC types who know that the current trajectory of what they are doing, their intellectual elites are doing to this country, will end in chaos and ruin. And then they call us extremists who don't want to be governed. In fact, I'd like to go find that clip for you real quick just to buttress what I'm saying about our elites and this sort of strange reverse criticism that they always seem to be able to pull on us. One second here. Let me prime this up for you. But this is Nancy Pelosi. I mean, and look, can Nancy Pelosi ever tell the truth? Probably. There might be some things that she can tell the truth about. I don't see it too often, but hey, it's possible. But I just know, when I hear Nancy Pelosi speak, like my dear friend Jason Whitlock said about me, if my mouth is moving, I'm probably lying. Here's somebody who, if her mouth is moving, she's probably lying, right? That's something you could certainly say about Nancy Pelosi with great utility. So I just want to play this for you, if I can. One moment here. I usually have these videos queued up, but I'm going to play this for you right here. And producing the show by yourself, hey, it makes it fun. It makes it so you don't have to necessarily concern yourself with making unlimited money to try and stay afloat. Don't have to pay anybody to produce a show. It's just me. May have to wait a few seconds while I scrum through some videos. In the future, as I start to do these more consistently, I'll get a completely different device. Right now, today I'm running it off my phone. This is one of the first times that I'm doing this. But as I get better with it, I'll get an iPad and I'll have all of my videos for the Wednesday news show loaded up, and we'll just zoom through them 1, 2, 3. So here we go.
Something's wrong with this picture. And I just think that if we can just get over this and the Republicans can be their true self, their conservative self, not fringe element off the spectrum of where you are in terms of the role of government. They don't believe in governance. Understand that. So this for them is not any break in the action. They don't want any action.
Yes, exactly.
This is it. This is like glory, hallelujah. The same day.
These extremists, these MAGA Republicans, we don't want to be governed. We don't want to be governed. We won't accept governance. We're so fringe. We're such a fringe element. I mean, the arrogance of this woman is mind-boggling. It's one thing to lie to other people. It's another thing to lie to yourself, and to say something so dishonest with so much consistency and so much conviction. I mean, there's a part of you that actually has to start to believe it, right? And I think that's what we misinterpret about who some of these people are who oppose freedom in this country and America's foundational values. We seem to think they're just telling lies. They don't really believe any of it. No, some of these people are so riddled with psychosis, which when you live a life that isn't anchored in the truth and you start to drift off of the path of truth, real unadulterated, real raw truth, um, that neurosis turns to psychosis, and before you know it, you have to believe in the lies in order to keep your sanity. And that's a depraved place to be, where the lie that you tell yourself upholds the foundations, the psychological foundations of your sanity. And that's why, for me, one of the first remedies to my anxiety, remember yesterday, in yesterday's episode or last night's episode, I talked about angst and despair, which are two philosophical terms, and that both of them are emergent, right? Angst is emergent, despair is emergent. Angst is emergent in that every day you wake up, you have that innate sort of impulse to get up and go, to move. Without that angst, you wouldn't do anything. I mean, you'd just be kind of a zombie figure, right? That angst, that internal ticker, that internal voice, that clock that tells us get up and move, you know. And part of that resides in our consciousness, our awareness, our knowledge, the gift of our knowledge of our own demise, which also can create that angst. Like there's a time, you know, you only get so many days, you only get so many breaths in this lifetime. The eternal is something different. And and that's one side. And then the despair is, hey, it will come to an end. All things will come to an end. This is what you would call an epistemological axiom that that creates a dynamic that both makes life troublesome, that makes it tumultuous, that makes it hard, tough, but also beautiful. Because the angst and despair that we all face is remedied through our submission to God and his grace and charity. And what a brilliant setup we have, right? Here you got a woman who claims to be a Catholic, with all due respect, spit on the floor. This woman is an absolute liar. And you can tell the schism of her mind is so broken that part of her really believes what she said. And she's wearing it, right? I mean, Nancy Pelosi's wearing it on her face. She looks like a ghoul. She really does. She's a ghoul. And I don't mean to talk about senior citizens and whatnot. And I was one of the few Republicans that was willing to say the thing that happened with Paul Pelosi was absolutely strange in every sense. And, you know, I don't know what some of these freaky DC cartel people are into in their private sex life. It's not really my issue. If they would come to the well of the Congress or the people's house and do the people's business in the interest of the American people, I really wouldn't care much what they do in their private life. It just so happens there's a lot of correlation between the alleged depravity of these people in their personal lives and how they sell us out when they are in office. And when they get out of office and they're lobbying or they're, you know, consultants or, you know, it's just a swamp, right? And Donald Trump called that out. And as we go forward here, his words are aging better and better, right? So Nancy Pelosi says these MAGA Republicans are a fringe element of the Republican Party. If they would just be their true conservative selves, right? And what she's talking about is a time that was more easy for her, a time that was more convenient, where the Republicans, where the conservatives were really just neocons, right? When they were just neocons and sort of milk toast rhino conservatives who talked about low taxes and low regulation. I mean, that was easy. Then we could run the stage play a little bit easier. I mean, why all of this friction? She's almost insulting you to a level that's you know, more than offensive. I mean, it's hostile, right? I mean, she thinks you're so stupid that you'll believe that Matt Gaetz is this radical fringe element of the Republican Party and doesn't represent the deplorable base of tens of millions of people that voted for Donald Trump in 2020, that voted MAGA in 2022. She wants you to believe that this is just some little small fringe element of the Republican Party or the conservative movement. When on the flip side, there in San Francisco, she wants you to believe that the trans activists or the trans movement within the LGBTQ should take center stage as a priority of America's political focus, right? America first policy pursuers, America first politicians, America first worldview holders in communities all across the entire country who make up probably at least 60 to 70 million American citizens, if not more. Some of them didn't even vote. Those people are the fringe. I mean, talk about democracy and then the silent majority that you're trying to other by pure political supremacy and elitism. Nancy, screw yourself. I mean, with no due respect, screw yourself. San Francisco, the capital of the LGBTQ, home of Bohemian Grove, the freak show from Freak Island, and those people should their lifestyle, which they could do in private with little to no intrusion, with little to no impediment. Their lifestyle should be the political focus of the entire country when they represent a very small portion of the population. But maybe 100 million people who believe in America First politics are the fringe. This is the type of lie that they're willing to tell you. I mean, this is exactly the type of arrogance and elitism that we're facing in this country. And it doesn't stop there. I mean, the Nancy Pelosi's, and I can continue to talk about Nancy Pelosi until the cows come home, because I really, really have a problem with that particular brand of lifelong, DC insider. Not, I don't mean to say insider trading. There is some insider trading that goes on with Nancy Pelosi. Obviously, she's batting 1,000 when it comes to stocks and trades, but that sort of insider DC elite that's made a career, a lifelong career out of politics. I got a particular aversion to that, to these people. These people are exactly the status quo that has betrayed the country, but even more so gotten rich during the decline. And I said that yesterday. I said it on Monday's show, I think. I said it last weekend. Show me a time in human history. Show me a time in human history when the declining empire, when the elites from the declining empire got rich as the empire went down, as the ship sunk. You can't show me one. That didn't happen in the Roman Empire. The Roman elites, the Roman aristocracy, or the Roman upper class or wealthy, uber wealthy, they only had their coffers empty as the empire went down, as the ship sunk. Or they had to skip town with the silver and the gold and the rubies, and they had to go live off of what they already had. There was no stability. Their net worth suffered as the Roman Empire went down. These people are getting richer as as Rome falls, as the walls fall, as the walls go down, as the hordes invade. Not the whores, the hordes with the D. As the hordes invade, these people continue to get richer. And here, they'll send these type of people. I got a clip here of Greta Thunberg talking about vegan warfare. I mean, it glows so much, it's hard to even look at it with a straight face. But you have to look at it with a straight face because people take it very serious. And I'm going to show you here in a moment a clip of some strange art style. I don't know how to even explain it. You have to really see it for yourself. So if you're listening, I would recommend that you find one of our channels or platforms to watch this particular clip. I'll also post it on my Twitter if you just are completely adamant against YouTube, or if for some reason you're not on Rumble and you want to see the clip. I'll post it on my Twitter later on this evening. But there is a clip of a strange art show where there are two people who are holding a man laying on his back with two sticks in his hand, and they're dragging him along this floor, and he's got a candle sticking out of his rear end. And I don't play it to be funny, although it is humorous. One of those you have to laugh to stop from crying kind of deals. But there is a crowd of people around watching, and for the life of me, I don't know what these people are thinking. I mean, these people seem like the fringe to me. Where I come from, the reason why Steve Bannon resonates with me is because where I come from, the black men that hold up the community, as best they can with all of its many imperfections. The black men that I grew up around, they look at this stuff as fringe. This is fringe. And to be quite honest, I'm from a place that's pretty diverse here in the Twin Cities, Minnesota, right? We got a huge Somali immigrant community. We have a huge Hmong immigrant community. We always have, at least in my lifetime, since the early 90s. We have a huge population of Hispanics. My family being, original immigrants from Mexico, part of my family being originally immigrated here from Mexico themselves. And we have a bunch of other, nationalities from Europe as well, Polish and Irish, German. And, so it's a melting pot here in Minneapolis for sure. And I don't know anybody who thinks that this is normal. This type of strange, artistic, yuppie, esoteric, you know, sexual art kind of cohort. But we're supposed to resurrect statues of Lilith in these people's honor and in defense of these people's right to the American dream. Look, the American dream is yours, is there for you to take, for you to have. If you want to buy an art studio and you want you and 50 of your friends to go in the art studio and get half naked and whip each other and drag each other around to orchestral music and pour water or wax or blood or whatever you want on one another, fine. You're an American citizen. I think it's kind of strange. We should probably be watching you because chances are you're going to escalate the level of perversion at some point and somebody's going to get hurt. So I think we should probably be watching you, but you're free to do what you want to do. Just let's not make it our political focus as a country, especially when we're $33 trillion in debt and we're on the verge of nuclear war. Here we have their starlet, Greta Thunberg, who's gotten older, by the way, and age hasn't done her well. I don't mean to make ad hominems about teenagers, but this woman is about as satanic looking as you could possibly imagine. I mean, if I was going to pick a young girl to play a young, possessed, eclectic, authoritarian sort of protege for some aristocratic global elite, Greta Thunberg would surely be it. Here we go.
Bad, specifically for the planet. War is always bad, specifically for the planet. If we want to continue fighting battles like environmentally conscious humans, we must make the change to sustainable tanks and weaponry. There are so many new concepts for battery-powered fighter jets that can carry many more missiles, biodegradable missiles, of course. Something literally everybody can do to stop this nonsense is, for example, block the roads to gardens and farms so the plants don't get overrun by these heavy, heavy tanks. Hand grenades, very important. If you use hand grenades, please use vegan grenades. No animal should have to give their life for all this mayhem and chaos. They have a special sticker on them. You really can't miss them in the grenade market or wherever you buy them. Yeah, I cover all of this and more in my newest book, Vegan Wars.
I'm sorry. It's very, very, very unprofessional of me. I thought I was doing well this episode and keeping it professional and not using any profanity. But this young woman is an absolute nut job. This is the eschatological crisis of this utopian, egalitarian, sort of globalist, technocrat, atheist mindset. I mean, vegan grenades with a special sticker. If we're going to do war, we should do war vegan. We should have biodegradable tanks. I mean, this woman is pitching for a whole new type of military industrial complex. She doesn't want war to stop. She just wants to make sure if war has to continue, then we should at least make it biodegradable, right? I mean, let's not let our flaws as human beings come down to bear too much on the earth. And I don't know if she actually thinks that this is reasonable. I mean, imagine walking in to the United Nations summit and telling the Chinese or the Russians or the Iranians or the Turks or anybody else on the world stage that America and the West is now going to lead the revolution to completely change the fundamental materials, the base materials used in modern warfare. I mean, is this woman some type of strange? Well, I know the answer. She's definitely working for the security state, probably at an international level, to get Western white people feeling guilty, self-loathing, and accepting the decline of the West. Because if they don't accept the decline of the West, then we can't have a smooth transition of power to a China-centric future. And that is kind of the danger on the horizon. I mean, how many corporations, how many mainstream outlets, how many people are going to give this little nut job a platform to spew this nonsense? And I want to go back and show you, these are the things I start to look at. And I want to show you this liberal white woman who's sitting on the couch as a host, and just look at how she affirms Greta Thunberg. Look at the enthusiasm that she has in her face, as she kind of pacifies Greta Thunberg's ideas here. I mean, this is the real edifice of the white liberal woman, which stretches from here all the way to the European Union.
Important. If you use hand grenades, please use vegan grenades. No animal should have to give their life for all this mayhem and chaos. They have a special sticker on them. You really can't miss them in the grenade market or wherever you buy them. Yeah, I cover all of this and more.
Yeah, I mean, and she's just nodding her head yes, and part of it is this. Part of that is this. Part of that is this. This just this sort of fake, TV interviewer style persona deal that we all see across the mainstream media, whether it be internationally, nationally, and even at the local level. It always bothered me, and um, it always motivated me, or you could say, encouraged me to one day get involved with broadcasting, just because I could see how fake this sort of broadcasting TV guy persona really, really was. And I think that's why a guy like Steve Bannon exploded onto the scene. And a guy like Alex Jones has always had great success because they don't do that I'm on TV thing, right? Like I'm on the radio thing. And that thing that people do causes them to kind of have this zombie like smile where they pacify whatever the person they're interviewing is saying. I mean, biodegradable grenades, it's absolutely absurd. And on that note, while we're talking about war, I'm going to make a slight transition to some news there from the Middle East. I've always said that we can't trust the Turks and that this whole NATO alliance is built on a house of cards, a corrupt house of cards, to be quite honest. The corruption, number one, in that we're going to protect the entire NATO union or we're going to pay more money than everybody else. We have a bigger GDP and we pay 2, 3 times, 4 times as much as everybody else, 2 times as much as everybody else. I think other people are paying in 1%, 1.5, 2%, and we're paying in 4, 5%. Plus, when everybody goes to war, right? I mean, who's coming to foot the bill? The American taxpayer. So, um, I've always said that this NATO alliance was built on a house of cards, and Turkey's a great example. I mean, how's this going to work now? All right. What are we gonna do here? Again, I go back to this conflict in Israel and Palestine because, like Steve Bannon said, our border is the first priority. This country is the first priority. Before we get to that, there was something I was thinking I wanted to say about America and borders because some of my black audience members out there have this nihilism towards America still and patriotism and the idea of citizenship. America's going to fail. America doesn't love you. America isn't what you need to be focused on. You need to be focused on, black people getting reparations and whatnot. And first off, cut the shit. Okay, let's just talk brass tack here. A nation, there comes a point in time when a man has to stop what he's doing, look in the mirror, organize his thoughts so he can reorganize his life and get back to something that's more reasonable, something that's more feasible, uh, something that's more humble, something that works better. Right? A man gets too far out over his skis sometimes in life, and he has to bring things back down to the simple. And to bring things back down to the simple, his thoughts may actually get more complex, more sophisticated. His the scope of his thoughts and ideas may expand, but the footprint of his actions will start to constrain, if that makes sense. That's where real growth is. That's why many of our intellectual and philosophical thought leaders throughout history were people who spent very little time uh, doing a lot of things, and they spent a lot of time thinking about very deep things. Right? There's profundity in that. I think at a moment, different moments in history, more people were more interested in true intellectual growth. Intellectual growth is the gateway to spiritual growth, you could say, right? It's not just enough to love Christ and know God, or know Christ and submit to God and submit to Christ, but to understand why. To understand why, so you can understand how, so you can understand when you come across the enemy, how not to let the enemy have this effect on your soul. That takes a level of wisdom, and wisdom doesn't come cheap. Wisdom comes at a great cost. It comes at a great expense. It comes at a great price. But the price usually is that the price isn't anything isn't anything monetary. It's not something you pay for. It's something you discover. It's something you discover usually within your own mind, within your own thoughts. That's why I never undermine or talk down to the audience. Because if anything, I hope to be able to do in this podcast is to inspire you to think deeper, to inspire you to think differently, inspire you to think at all. I'm not here to play upon your rage and emotion. I'm here to mentor an audience that I hope we build slowly but steady, in quality, not quantity, of eventually a million people, let's say, a million subscribers who actually are armed intellectually, philosophically with the currency of intellect and philosophy to really go out and change the world around them, change their reality as best they can, as much as they can, as much as their circumstance will allow them to. But do they even have the proper foundations of thought to maximize what they can change in the world? Many of us don't. And in that is the greatest systemic injustice that the West has done to its own people. And right now, the chickens are coming home to roost because of it. Because we all thought in this crazy crony capitalist, sort of monopolistic kind of mentality, industrialization, which then turned to globalization mentality, we all thought, hey, the dumber the people are, the better. The easier we can pull the money scam on them, the easier we can steal from them, the easier we can misrepresent them or mislead them or divide them so we can conquer them. We all thought that was an efficacious strategy. In fact, it was kind of baked into early American culture, right? Every man for himself. Right? May the best man win, kind of business dealing. And it's not bound by morals or ethics, right? When you don't do business, when you have capitalism unbound by morals and ethics, you have the predicate for corruption. I mean, in its most unfiltered kind of sense. So that's why the intellectual is so important. That's why the philosophical is so important. That's why the way we think itself is very important. And so we are on the brink of war. It's very clear that we're on the brink of war. And now it's going to become a West versus East thing. And how do we deal with this? How do we square this? How do we start to view the conflict and what we as American citizens should be voting for in the next election? When we say America first, what do we mean? Do we mean America's not going to be involved anywhere around the world? Or do we mean America doesn't need to be involved in everything around the world? There's a difference. And true leaders, whichever leaders we pick, are going to have to discern which things we get involved in and which things we don't get involved in. But the first priority is our border. The first priority is as a nation having that wisdom right now to understand we're out over our skis. We're the man who has to take a step back, look in the mirror, not let anybody trample over us, not let anybody harm us, not become self-loathing and self-hating and sit back and accept victimization for some strange guilt complex that we've built about being American, which we're supposed to accept through some proxy of the overrepresentation of white males. I mean, give me a break, Greta Thunberg, Rachel Maddow, Joy-Ann Reid, Cuck Joe, and all you other neoliberal, leftist progressive whack jobs. You actually think that I'm so dumb as a young black man that I'm supposed to accept the decline of America and my citizenship through a proxy of your very esoteric claim that all white men are bad? All white men bad, like Ilhan Omar said? Give me a break. I'm not doing it. I'm not that stupid. I'm just not that stupid. It's insulting. I'm not giving up my citizenship because white men in the past did something that I don't agree with or something that I think was terrible, horrible, atrocious, sinful, whatever it is. I'm not giving up my citizenship today because white men did something bad in the past. That's just stupid. That's dumb. But I'm supposed to let your selected white men run the show, like Cuck Joe or Joe Biden or, I don't know, Gavin Newsom, or now, Dean Phillips from Minnesota is going to make a presidential. I mean, give me a break. I'm not. Come on, I'm just not doing it. This is absurd in every sense of the word. I'm not doing it, and none of you out there should do it. And while we're talking about it, none of you white men out there should accept this narrative that America is destined to fail, or that we should accept this decline and this transition of power to a more fair and equitable global government who has a better view, a better perspective on things than the white men in America could possibly have. Because, hey, history doesn't speak favorably for you. You tell these people to go screw themselves, okay? Go screw yourself. We are American citizens. We can repent with God for the things in our past, for the things we've done individually. And the best way to do that is not to give over to a satanic global governance. The best way to do that is to realize we're out over our skis as a nation, the same way we have to as individual people. Look in the mirror. Take the time to think. I mean, truly think. What are our life goals? What are our life's ambitions? What is a healthy life? What does it consist of? What would you like your life to look like? And then how can you take the steps to start to put that in motion? Maybe it starts off slow. Maybe you start off, in little small steps. Maybe you make big decisions. You create new boundaries in your own personal life. And maybe as a nation, we need to create new boundaries as a nation. And that's all good. But we got to start to look in the mirror and really ask ourselves very, very tough questions. And none of the answers are going to be easy. All of those are behind us because we let it get to this point. But hey, it's not over. It's not over. It's going to be over if we submit to global governance out of self-doubt. It's going to be over if we allow ourselves to continue out over our skis to the point where we tip right over and can no longer keep our balance. And with that being said, hey, Turkey, well, what are we going to do here, right? I've said it 10 times. You cannot trust Erdogan. I mean, Erdogan is with everybody and nobody, right? And now he's going to rile up. I mean, he's giving a speech there, a public speech in front of what looks like 20,000, 30,000, maybe 50,000 people there in Turkey. Giving a speech about a West versus East that's on the horizon. And yes, the West and the East may come to sword. We may cross swords here. I got my money on us if we're led by people who don't actually want to see the decline and the destruction of the West when we go to war. If that's the case, if we have people who actually want to see the decline and destruction of the West when we cross swords with the East, yeah, we are going to have a tough day in the office. But we can win that fight. We can beat them. We can win. We can win. And at best, we can fight them to a stalemate. For sure. Now, how does that all shake out? I don't know. I don't even know if we're really going to war. I just hear the rhetoric. Now, everybody may be at this point in human history where they ratchet up the rhetoric for whatever political Ponzi scheme they're going to try and pull on the international stage or within their own set of domestic political circumstances, right? Everybody has a game they have to play. Everybody has a balance they have to. And so as you see like a BLM and a Marxists or whatever group get more theatrical here in our country due to the visibility of social media and whatnot, understand that that's happening all around the world. Everybody knows that they're more visible than any time in human history. Everybody has this kind of acute awareness of that. So everybody's doing a sort of theater, a sort of theatrical thing, right? And I'm not saying we should take what Erdogan said lightly, because absolutely we should not. I've always said we can't trust Erdogan and we can't trust the Turks, because who knows where their loyalties really lie. And I've told you all before, the Turks, the Persians, many of these nations that are now nation states are the remnants of very ancient empires, and they still have an empire complex about their role or their position in the world. And they're just laying in the weeds, waiting for the moment to strike, to rail against the hegemony of the West. And we have that target on our back as America. People want to say, oh, America's, walked all across the globe and waged all these sins. Oh, give me a break. I'm the first one that will come to the table and talk about the sins of America's past. I talked about Reagan, the CIA, the security state, toppling governments, drugs, money, guns for profit, for political agendas, right? Yeah. Oil and war for oil or whatever the case. America has any long laundry list of sins. But under no circumstances does that mean we should accept the idea that all of these other fallen empires have a legitimate gripe against us. No, they have a historical, an understandable, a quite predictable historical envy of the king of the hill. Duh, of course. Of course the Ottomans, of course the Turks, the Ottoman Empire looks at America and says, East versus West, in their position in their declined position. Of course the Persians look at the West and go, East versus West, in their declined position. Of course China looks at the West and goes, East versus West, in their declined position. And they are in a declined position. Remember, China's a 6,000-year-old civilization. At one moment in history, the Chinese empire was just as advanced as any Western empire or any Western civilization there was. They went into decline, and then they had huge problems, famine, so on and so forth. And then the Chinese empire rose again with our money, might I add. If it wasn't for us, China wouldn't be what it is today. So they should be grateful, right? They should be sending us thank you notes nonstop before they pull their pants down and show any envy, right? But any nation over there, any nation that used to formerly be, significant, have an empire or whatever the case may be, any nation is going to have that natural envy. And America has a target on its back, spiritually, intellectually, politically, economically, culturally. We have a target on our back for obvious reasons. Despite all the corruption in this country, despite all the moral decadence, this country has always been a place where people wanted to come, where people's citizens wish they could live. And there's a reason for that. So we shouldn't neglect that. We shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We have to refine and rebuild this nation in a way that reflects the real will of the people. And we can do that. We can win that war, and we can win a war against any would-be enemy that comes from another place in the world. We can win both of those wars, but we need real leadership. We need real leadership. And what do we do right now with NATO? I think back to Donald Trump's words and about the NATO deal and about pulling out of NATO. I mean, NATO's alliance it coming up is going to undermine itself, without any help, really, right? I mean, the day is fast approaching when the NATO alliance is going to crumble. And what does that have to do with us? I mean, I said it yesterday on Hotep Jesus' show. I said it early in the podcast this week about the neocons and them being Atlantists. I've said it throughout the first 100 episodes of this podcast in one episode or another. We are not European. We are not European. The NATO alliance is an international military venture to service and protect the sovereignty of the Crown or Great Britain or the European Union. They can fight their own war. Why does America need to be $33 trillion in debt and continue to go into debt by promising a portion of our GDP to protecting Europe? And then we've been this way for decades. Why aren't Europe's armies fat? Why aren't Europe's armies ready for war? Why aren't Europe's armies ready to stand guard against any would-be enemy out there to the West, right? I mean, how do we have an ally in the East when when Erdogan comes, the first thing you got to remember about the Turks, there's a saying with the Turks, right? The Turks, the heart of the Turk longs for Vienna, right? The Turkish people, Turkey, they have an affection for Europe. They want to be European. And I don't say that lightly. I mean, there is a cultural epithet in the Turkish people that has this sort of European identity to it, or it longs for a European identity. The heart for Turkey longs for Vienna. You can look that saying up, that phrase up. There's great historical significance to it, and kind of how Turkey is it's part of the Middle East, and it has this Muslim dynamic to it, but it's right there on the outskirts of Europe. And so there's a modernity, there's a sort of westernization that Turkey has always longed to be a part of, partly why they were so amenable to joining the NATO alliance in a cultural sense. So what are we going to do now? Erdogan rises to power. Erdogan now is calling for a holy war between the West and the East, and he sends a threat to the West through Israel and says, hey, I support him. He's talking about saying he supports Hamas. Erdogan just came right out and said he supports Hamas. I mean, he wasn't saying stop killing Palestinians. He wasn't saying, let's find a ceasefire so that the innocent Palestinian civilians can find refuge or whatever. He was just saying, I support Hamas. Wow. I mean, talk about, a little screwy in the head. And all you out there can say, hey, look what Israel has done. Look what America has done. Hey, look what the Ottomans did. All you want to side with the Iranians, look what the Persians did. All you want to side with the Chinese, look, or whoever else, look at their history. Look at their empirical history. Look what the Chinese are doing now. Who are the Chinese to be the moral judge of America's foreign policy, of America's behavior, America's actions? Who are they to be the judge? No, we the people need to stand up and be a moral arbiter, a moral judge of our own nation's government and its actions. But we're not going to let some foreign authority become the proxy moral judge of our nation's actions and thus destiny, fate. There's nothing remotely appropriate about that. Now China's going to be the moral judge of this great nation because of the sins of our history. No. You can let Rachel Maddow and these other woke liberal professors from the universities tell you that sob story. They can go live in China then with their self-loathing and their self-hatred and their anti-American sentiment. Not me. I'm not giving my citizenship up or my stake in American citizenship over to the Chinese because of what any American did in history. I have my own life and my own destiny to pursue. So we got to be able to draw that line. Yeah, America's done some really bad things in history. Much of what I spend most of my time on this podcast talking about. A lot of bad things we've done in history. However, I'm not going to let the Iranians or the Chinese or the Russians, for that matter, or anybody else, especially the Turks, tell me how America should behave. Can't do it. Sorry, Captain. Sorry, Captain Erdogan. You can go screw yourself right along with Nancy Pelosi. put the fatwa out on me like you tried to do Enes Kanter. And look, I don't really particularly trust Enes Kanter. I'm just going to tell y'all. I'm glad he spoke out against the NBA, but when you take a picture with the director of the CIA and say, "This is my friend," I start to have great questions about, about who you are and what you're really doing. Nobody from the CIA would ever take a picture with me because I would never be at a function where there would be somebody from the CIA. And if I happened to be at a function where somebody from the CIA was there, I would go out of my way not to be seen in a photo with them because I detest everything that the security state has become and the intelligence community. I think it's an infamia to the United States Constitution, and I know Enes is not from America, so he's probably not as familiar with the United States Constitution and how the security state has been such a threat to it. I get it. On face value, I'm holding my breath on Enes Kanter. And I say that from a very personal standpoint. If any of you don't know the history, when I was going to transfer from the University of Minnesota to Kentucky, Enes Kanter was also playing his first season at Kentucky, which both of us would have had to sit. And I remember John Calipari telling me, you and Enes are going to be here and we're going to try and get you both eligible, which would have had us playing with John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins, who already won a national championship that year. I mean, could you imagine if Enes Kanter, myself, John Wall, and DeMarcus Cousins were all on the same team? We probably would have went undefeated. And I think they only lost a game or so that year. I mean, it would have been maybe the best college basketball team in history, seriously. But anyway, I ended up not going. I went to Iowa State, and Enes Kanter ended up going to Kentucky. He didn't get to play. And Calipari said, our practices have so many NBA scouts. Both of you will get drafted. He said, I'd love to coach you, and I'm going to coach you this year while you're here. Even if we can't get you eligible, you'll be able to practice. But I'm telling you now, I know, I'm just telling you, both of you are going to get drafted, and I'll never get a chance to coach you in the real season. Because they had so many NBA scouts at his practices that people get drafted just from being in practice, even if they're ineligible or can't play or transferred or whatever. Well, Enes Kanter actually did get drafted and never played at Kentucky. So I tell that story, that small story, just to help people understand that I'm equal opportunity in my skepticism and criticism of people who I have some loose personal connection to. Yeah, I like Enes Kanter. Enes Kanter spoke out against the NBA in much of the way I would have spoken out against the NBA had I been playing or if I was playing today, which I should be playing today, and I'm not because they know I'll speak out. Not only did I speak out about mental health, but I would have spoken out about China. I would have spoken against the vaccine mandate, and I certainly wouldn't have sat by and let them play fast and loose with the truth when it comes to any of these woke politics about BLM. So that is something that I respect and admire about Enes Kanter. Still took a picture with the CIA director. Can't trust that. However, Erdogan, the President Erdogan, did put a fatwa out on Enes Kanter, a standing kill order, so to speak, on Enes Kanter, and that's significant. When you speak out against a country's president or a country's political leaders, and you now live in another country, and that country's leaders put a standing kill order out on you, I mean, wow. Says a lot about the leaders. I mean, we know what kind of country we're talking about, and as we go forward here, I mean, let's be adults about this. Again, America has many, many dark things in its past, many, many dark things in its current dealings. But there are differences between us and these nations, and one of the significant differences, up until about 10 years ago, 8 years ago, when the censorship on big tech kind of took off, or maybe it was just in the last 5 years, really. I can't, not quite sure off the top of my head. But one of the things that has always been a hallmark of American citizenship and why people flee their own riddled nations is freedom of speech, right? So the number one thing that's been the calling card of American citizenship is now under attack by American citizens. Kind of tells you who those people are. But freedom of speech has always been the calling card of American citizenship on the world stage. freedom of speech, freedom of expression, as the ultimate representation of freedom itself, right? It's like a man can be free to move about where he wants to, but if he can't speak out against his political elites or his government, then he's not really free. And there's a lot of merit to that philosophy, which made our founding fathers brilliant and unique amongst other nations all across the world, that we can criticize our government. We should be able to criticize our government without fear fear of the government. And in Turkey, I guess that's not the case. Well, I'd say Turkey is our natural enemy. I mean, just on a fundamental basis, Turkey's our enemy. And Erdogan, you're getting really big for your britches there, buddy. I don't know who in the West or who in the NATO alliance or who in the Biden administration is so punk, pencil neck, omnisexual, self-loathing, self-doubting, globalist that they're letting Erdogan talk like that. I mean, let's just say this. If I was president of the United States, I wouldn't incite violence or incite war, but I certainly would be stern with people who we pay the lion's share of money to in a military alliance. I wouldn't let them talk like that. I can guarantee you that. I would love to be in a room with Erdogan and have the full weight of the United States government. First of all, I'd love to be in a room with Erdogan one-on-one and have him talk about America and the West the way he did in his last speech. I mean, take all the Secret Service people out, take all the special military and take all these people out of the equation. Just me and Erdogan. I would love to have Erdogan in a room alone and hear him talk about America or the West the way he did in his latest speech. I would pay money. I would pay money to get in a room alone with Erdogan and hear him talk like that. And so, see, as much as they want to talk about their anti-Western sort of culture, right, personality there with the Turks and Erdogan, and say how soft we've become, which we have, partly because we elect soft leaders, milquetoast, half-baked, not leaders who are militant pipe hitters, smash mouth populists like me. Hopefully we'll change that. The referendum's on you. But part of the narrative is dishonest to begin with, because these leaders enjoy a sort of posh, luxurious position as well. And Erdogan's not a tough guy. First of all, he doesn't look like a very big guy, but he's not a tough guy to be promulgating and promoting, advocating for war like that. I mean, unless you're ready to do individual combat, unless you're really ready to be able to go one-on-one and fight to the death, I don't think that you should really be able to talk like that about war that implicates millions of other people. I mean, there's a lack of humility and a sort of radical arrogance and narcissism in that alone. And Erdogan and a lot of these other world leaders show it. And of course, he has to make it a holy thing, right? He says, "Does the West the West want a war between the cross and the crescent?" Oh, he's just feeding the narrative, right? I mean, he's just feeding the neocon narrative. I saw Mark Levin tweet that there were Islamo-Nazis, that the final solution had to be Israel's. The final solution, that there could be no two-state solution. There can never be a two-state solution. That the final solution has to be Israel's final solution, to drive Hamas from the river to the sea. Whoa, these people are intemperate. I mean, these people have no self-restraint. Huh? Find Hamas, kill every one of them. They want to go to war. Hey, time to go to war. Once you make the decision to go to war, you got to deal with the consequences. Part of those consequences sometimes are death, right? And obviously, they seem to think that they're ready for that. Okay, as my grandfather used to say, you're going to get everything you want. The question is, do you want everything you're going to get? No. The saying is, you're going to get everything you're asking for. The question is, do you want everything you're going to get? Some people's eyes are bigger than their stomach, and then you get a stomach ache, or then your stomach just explodes because you're such a gluttonous MFer. But, so, Hamas wanted to go to war. Hey, they made a bold move, commit atrocity against innocent people. Well, here comes the payback. Here comes the retaliation. You sent a message, now they got to send you one back. Find every person who's a Hamas who was a part of these attacks, kill them. Fine. What's it got to do with us? Number one, but number two, what's it got to do with any of the innocent Palestinians there? And how do you separate the two? These are not easy questions. America's role, easy answer. We're not involved. We're definitely not sending unlimited aid when our border's wide open. The hard answer is, how do we speak to it morally as one of the premium superpowers in world politics? If there's a way that the Palestinians, the rest of the Palestinians, the innocent Palestinians could get out of the line of fire, obviously that's ideal. Tough question and tough answer, right? I mean, I said from the very beginning, the only way that they could potentially rid Hamas is if they believe in their intelligence to be able to identify who Hamas is. And they started with that narrative, and now they've migrated from that narrative. The narrative began with, we're going to go door to door. We're going to go kick down every door and find Hamas because we know who they are and we know where they're at, or we'll find out where they are. Well, everybody called bullshit on that narrative from the beginning because they said, hey, if you have such great intelligence and such a confidence in finding these people, how did this attack happen in the first place? That's a really reasonable and logical question. I asked it myself on day one. This doesn't sound right. And then they abandoned that and said, hey, we're just going to drop bombs. It's airstrike them all. Maybe we'll get them. Maybe we won't. Maybe we kill the American hostages that are there. Maybe we don't. I mean, now you have families in Israel, whether they be left or right, protesting in the streets to bring the hostages home. And I still, for the life of me, I still don't understand how a country that has enemies on all sides has a citizenship that has essentially a Second Amendment, and they're not all carrying guns, especially that close to the wall. Somebody tell me what's going on there. Is there a sort of of soft culture seeping in there in Israel like here in America? And it's a cautionary tale. I don't say this I don't say this to try and cash in politically at the plight of the people who lost their lives in that atrocity. But it is a cautionary tale that all of you need to become very, very familiar with the fundamental philosophy and utility of the Second Amendment. Because you can't tell me that if those Israeli citizens had been taking the Second Amendment or their right to bear arms or their bearing arms seriously, that some of those people wouldn't have been saved. And when President Trump said these people are smart, you think it's by accident that they attacked a music festival, or that they attacked the part of Israel that they attacked, or you think that they didn't have intelligence about the daily activity or the bearing of arms, the culture of arms bearing in those Israeli residential areas? You think they didn't know that these people don't carry guns around? I mean, if it's me and I live in Israel, I don't care how posh Tel Aviv gets. I don't care how posh, any of these places get. We got enemies on all sides by their narrative. We got to always be armed and ready to go, right? I mean, if the region is so bad that you have people like Mark Levin saying nuclear war may be an option, then how is that same citizen base not always ready for their surrounding enemies to invade their country? The two don't add up. The two don't square. Or maybe the citizens have just gone soft. I mean, it's possible. It's possible. But what I do know, what I am saying is this. We have to become clear on it. I don't know the answer. I don't know if there can be a two-state solution. I don't know if there can be peace. I don't mean to, kind of chuckle at it, but it's just like these things are so far from what American citizens and American leaders need to be thinking about. They're just so far. I don't know. I mean, well, but why are we so caught up in this? I don't want to be involved. I'm just like, I'm like the kid who's at the playground and you see two brothers or two cousins at the playground and they're having a fight and it's obviously about something that happened, back at the family household that has nothing to do with the game of basketball going on at the park right now. For you anyway. I just came to play at the park and you two are getting in an argument and getting in a fight and really it's Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon. I got other stuff I could be doing. I'm just going to get on my bike and head out, guys. I don't want to be a part of this. But that hasn't been America's position. America is now forced to defend its foreign and interventionist policy, its interventionist foreign policy that the neoliberal military industrial complex set in motion a long time ago. So it's very hard for us as a country, as a nation, as a government, and even as a people to pull back from that norm, that status quo, and stand in the mirror and say, we're way out over our skis here. We don't even know how we're being attacked. Now our NATO ally, Turkey, is threatening the entire West when the heart of Turkey yearns for Vienna? Oh, give me a break, Erdogan. Take a chill pill, my man. You want to start a holy war with the Christians? Isn't it a common narrative that the Catholics, that the Templars, that the white Christians from Europe, isn't it a common narrative that the Christians committed genocide against the Muslims in the Crusades? Which one is it, Erdogan? Which one is it, Erdogan? You got balls of steel? You want to make it a holy war? Or did the Christians get the best of you last time? Or did we beat that ass last time? Which one is it? Just tell me. Because here in the West, we're not Islamo-Nazis like Mark Levin said. Some of us are America first. And we just want to defend our own border. We want to have a country. We want to have a country with borders. We're worried about getting back to that reasonable baseline of American citizenship and America's existence, America's political footing. And you want to talk about a war? Show me how many B-2 stealth bombers they have in Turkey. Oh, and if you had them, who sold them to you? Are we selling B-2 stealth bombers to potentially hostile, mortal national enemies? Are America's arms manufacturers, military industrial complex, allowed to sell proprietary technology to enemies that are potentially to nations that are potential enemies? I don't know the answer to that. I'm going to look it up tonight. I have an answer for you Friday when I bring Professor Penn on and we'll talk about some of these global issues. Nobody better source of the history and the feel of things than the great Professor Penn for Friday's Family and Friend episode. I don't know if we're giving B-2 bombers to Turkey through the the allyship of our NATO alliance. But if we are, we better fucking stop. I'll tell you that. We better quit. Because Erdogan is saying war between the East and the West. And if we're not selling them B-2 bombers, if I was Erdogan, I'd take a moment and gather myself. Because when I look at those videos, I'm just going to tell you, as a person who understands as a person who understands basic military engagement, who understands combat, who has that intuition for combat and battle, I'll tell you one thing. When I see those videos of those B-2 stealth bombers flying over Palestine, oh, spooky, scary. And that B-2 stealth bomber gets to flying straight at you at the right vantage point, and you can barely see it. It's so thin on the front end, you can barely see it. And it's carrying four 4 kiloton nuclear weapons, nuclear warheads, plus whatever else it has in the arsenal. Erdogan, you better gather yourself. Okay, so I'm not here to fearmonger, right? And don't let the conservative media or the Western media fearmonger you. fearmonger to warmonger. Don't let them do it to you, because I'm sure they'll show you the rise of Islam. Oh, the rise of Islam is coming. We got to do something over here. It's all at the service. It's all in the interest of the Europeans. None of them want to cross that. None of them want to cross the big blue to come tangle with America. They can talk that West stuff all they want to. They can talk that East versus West Coast stuff all they want to. I feel like I'm in a 1990s rap beef, East versus West. Come on, give me a break. They can talk that if they want to. None of them want to cross that big blue ocean to come dance with to come dance with America, to come dance with the United States of America with the red, white, and blue. They know we do war. They know we do war well. Yeah, the West has become a little esoteric and intellectual, a little soft around the edges, a little strange out there on the real fringe. Absolutely. But don't get it twisted. Brawn and bullets, it's still the fundamental cornerstone of what makes America America. And that was granted to us by our founding fathers as an ideology. And where we've given that up, where we've lost that footing, is in this false sense of security by this globalist project of military-industrial complex. We got to get back in front of that mirror and ask ourselves, are we the master of our destiny and our freedom and our safety? And along that same line of thought, I just thought it was so interesting. I came across this video of I came across this video here of Glenn Beck. And I want to say this. Glenn Beck has been a great media talent, great media personality. I've enjoyed some of Glenn Beck's work. When Glenn goes to talk about world issues, I remember him on the whiteboard. He was trying to put his finger on the button, and at the time he couldn't bridge the gap that Alex Jones has been able to bridge in his broadcast. And I don't think it's any coincidence. I think there are things that Glenn Beck has been unable to say because of the position of his media career and his broadcasting career that Alex Jones has been able to say because he's been more independent and sort of renegade in his own career. So I don't think it's by accident that Glenn was never really able to bring the full throat to the conversation that Alex Jones brings. That's a pause. I'm sorry. I had to say pause. But I will admit that Glenn Beck is an incredible media personality. So it was disheartening to come across this piece of content. It was shared with me over the last couple of days, and it was shared in a way that was to suggest that when you watch this, it becomes clear why your friend, like Jason Whitlock, for example, has sided the way that he sided in this latest conflict. And I just want to play this for you. Take it for what you will, and then I'll comment on it in a moment.
I don't know why I was born, but there is something about the state of Israel that connects deeply to me. To have the privilege to stand with the Jew is a tremendous honor, spiritually. So I want to read a letter that I wrote that I am sending to the state of Israel. To Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the honorable officials at the state of Israel. In this moment, I have chosen to ask you for citizenship in the state of Israel. I have nothing to offer but my voice of support. And some might say that my support might be more valuable as an independent voice. Perhaps they're correct. But my request for citizenship is not about words, it is about deeds. Why, one might wonder, would I want to embrace a heritage and identity that is so ruthlessly hunted down again and again? Yet it is precisely during such moments that we must choose to stand. I anticipate no privileges or exemption from the state of Israel. I instead yearn to align myself with those willing to rise, to fight, and sacrifice for the fundamental right to live. Is this not what both Israel and America embody? In closing, my desire for dual citizenship does not stem from any expectation of gain, but from a deep-rooted belief in standing with what is right and true. 10 years ago, I took my children to Israel for the first time, but we first visited Auschwitz in Poland. I told them, you cannot understand Israel without the Bible or Auschwitz. May Israel remain an eternal flame of hope, a beacon of resilience, and a testament to the enduring human spirit. I don't know why.
Disturbing. I mean, disturbing to say the very least. Number one, with everything I know about the content from the Blaze and its constant ridicule of the left and the woke left and this sort of this cringy sort of virtue signaling happy talk from BLM, Time's Up, trans activists about the horrors and evils of the West. I don't know why Glenn Beck thought that it would be prudent, proper, appropriate to do the exact same thing in a sort of neocon pro-Israel fashion. And that's exactly what that sounds like. Respectfully, respectfully, not respectfully. I mean, I say with all due respect, but I really don't respect this. Because now we all talk about globalism on the right, which we're right to do. We're right to talk about the dangers of globalism and the undermining and surrendering and managed decline and corruption to destroy American citizenship coming from the left. Well, this is the exact same thing in our own camp. Now we're going to give up our citizenship for dual citizenship in Israel. What business do you have being a citizen of Israel? I don't even understand that. Is Glenn Beck Jewish? I don't even know Glenn Beck to be Jewish, to be quite honest. Maybe he is. Maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe he is. I don't know that to be true. I've never heard that. I've never read that. I've never seen that. And I follow Glenn Beck's work, so maybe I haven't followed close enough. I mean, hey, some of you that know me wouldn't know that, my great-grandfather was Norwegian and my great-grandmother was from Aguas Calientes, Mexico, and my black family came from by way of the South like most did, in Arkansas, Kentucky, Kansas, and, slave trade. Okay. We don't know everything about a person's ethnicity or past. Usually it's not important, except when the strange occurrence that a man who is in the middle of a citizenship crisis in his own country writes a very, very awkward sort of Cuck type letter to the Israeli leadership to ask for dual citizenship. Was that strange to anybody else? I'm just asking a real question here. Feel free to drop it in the comments. Maybe I'm way off base. And I can see where you find, that a good letter in some poetic sense. I'm not saying it wasn't well written. It wasn't thoughtful. I'll grant it. It was heartfelt. Okay. And we all feel a sense of love and spiritual connection to the Jewish people. At least we should as Christians. I get that part of it. I have very dear Jewish friends myself. One will be on the show Friday evening. And if I played him this video, he would spit on the floor. I mean, it's actually kind of disgusting what's going on here. This is the wokeism that seeped into the right. This is the woke right. And for some reason, the right tends to be woke around these Israel matters. It's horrifying. What are you asking for dual citizenship for, so you can stand with the universally persecuted? You sound like every other Marxist BLM professor who tells white people they should give up their American citizenship because of what white men did in the past. In fact, you're the one who criticized that on a daily basis. I mean, this is part and parcel of the same sort of incongruent, contradictory line of thought that we saw from his protege, Jason Whitlock. Same thing. Same sort of incongruence, This person's wrong for blocking me. That person's wrong for ducking a conversation. But when Royce criticizes me one time, very softly, very, very loving and uplifting, I'm blocking him. I'm out. I can't deal with the conversation. Just bold-faced contradiction. Mark Levin, Donald Trump, we got to be America first. We got to be America first. You know, I support Donald Trump, kangaroo court this, kangaroo court that. This is unconstitutional. You know, I'm the constitutional guru. But when Matt Gaetz goes to the well of the Congress and says this entire town is hollowed out by lobbyism and special interests, now Matt Gaetz is a fringe extremist in the Republican Party. The same way Nancy Pelosi said it. And oh, this is the coup de grace. I mean, this is this video of Glenn Beck pleading, you know, poetically pleading for dual citizenship in Israel. Even if he's Jewish. I mean, even if he's Jewish, I don't like this type of video. I'm not, look, Mexico, Norway, I mean, I have some ancestral connection to some other places as well through ethnic. I'm not going to write a letter to plead for citizenship, dual citizenship, if they come into some conflict or war, or for any reason, under any auspices, because of my understanding of American citizenship. And it's very disheartening because somebody like Glenn Beck, who is a historian of this nation and citizenship, Glenn Beck is a real historian. If any of you don't know that, Glenn is a historian, right? I mean, that's part of what legitimizes Glenn's broadcasting work, is because he's a genuine historian. What is going on here? I'm just trying to paint both sides of the coin of what appears to be a complete and utter psyop about identity politics and a sort of ethnic, racial, religious fealty that stretches all around the world that has nothing to do with American citizenship. It's like at every turn they have a distraction for you to bite on, for you to accept, for you to pay for, and a distraction for you to pay for. Now we should. I mean, what is going on here? Somebody drop it in the comments. Maybe Glenn Beck is Jewish. I'm not sure, but even if he is, to ask for, why would you want to be a citizen? Oh, no, now you're going to what? Spend your summers in Tel Aviv? You know, are you kidding me? I thought the Muslims are coming, Glenn. I thought the Muslims, are you going to go fight? Are you going to go enroll in the IDF? Are you going to go learn Krav Maga? You're 50 pounds overweight wearing a fucking cardigan on your daily broadcast show. You're not ready for a war. I mean, I wore a cardigan a couple of weeks back. Nice heather gray cardigan. I thought it was really good. I was pleasantly surprised that I was even able to find a cardigan in my size that could fit my shoulders. But I'm 270 pounds with a 36 waist. I'm in the peak condition of my life. If I wanted to become a dual citizen of a persecuted peoples or nations just on the sole basis of wanting to help them and support them and fight them, at least I'm really willing to fight. At least I'm capable of fighting. You're not even capable of fighting, Glenn. I mean, this is a complete posh, elitist sort of esoteric, virtue signal that the left does. And I'm saying it not to try and, legitimize the left or come up with an excuse or make a false equivalency. No, I hate when the left does it. And I definitely don't like when Glenn Beck does it or anybody else on the right. And for some reason, maybe it's just the moment that we're in our country's history. Maybe it's the times we're living in because of the conflict that's broken out. But when I look at this Israel issue, a lot of these right wing, a lot of these conservative commentators and individuals all across the country seem to do the exact same virtue signal thing that the left does. And it's not just with this issue. We've seen it before. We've seen the right, for example, I'll give you another example. Another one where the right is very shaky and starts to just identify themselves, by comparison to the left, is around issues of sexual morality and sexual gossip. We can't wait for a Joe Biden to slip up and have some of his sexual exploits leaked to the press because they are relentless in going after Donald Trump. We don't want Donald Trump on the basis of what Joe Biden isn't. We want Donald Trump because he is an anti-war president, because he questioned the fundamental deals that hold up the current economic fabric of this country. We want Donald Trump for the good things he stood for, not for the bad things his opposition have stood for. That's not a real measure of leadership. That is a low expectation of leadership. It's not a leadership that will bear fruit. It's a leadership that's catty and this kind of, teenage sort of feminine back and forth. I tell my young guys all the time, whether it's my young guys at my son's age, his AAU team, or whether it's the guys at the high school level, and as soon as you start to bickering back and if you want to fight, just fight. If you really have a problem with each other, just fight. If you need to have a discussion, discuss things like men, right? And if none of it is really that important or that deep, let's just get back to playing. Let's just get back to doing the thing that we're here to do, because all of that's just a distraction then, right? And we have that sort of catty dichotomy playing in this American political culture. It's like this side does that, or they overemphasize, or they take too much leeway on this, so the rebound is not. And that's another reason why I keep going back to my love and my fealty and my relationship with Steve Bannon, because he's just a straight shooter. Doesn't matter which side you're on. I mean, this is just what it is. And that's leadership. And when you listen to Steve's show on a continuous basis, does Steve get it right every time? Nobody gets it right every time. Shortcoming of being human, right? Baked into the deal. But he's getting it right a lot of the times. And part of it is because he doesn't feel the need to be reaffirmed by one group or the other. He's actually taken on the mantle or duty of genuine leadership. And that's what we need in this country. And that's what I'm going to try to represent, which is why I'm pointing this out. I'm not doing it to double down on my position about Jason. In fact, I hope Jason watches this. I hope Jason sees this video and realizes if you go after Ben Shapiro, then your boys Mark Levin and Glenn Beck should be the topic of tomorrow's show. Can Jason Whitlock go on the show tomorrow and play this video as compared to his previous criticisms of Ben Shapiro? And make a comparable analysis as a broadcaster? And if you can't do that, then you should leave the blaze, my friend. You should leave the blaze, because the spirit of what you really want to talk about, I know you, right? I'm not one of your audience members. I'm not in the live chat. I know you. I've talked to you. The spirit of what you really want to talk about, something ain't allowing you to talk about it. Or you're only talking about it if it doesn't affect you, which makes you a hypocrite. And many of us have real hypocrisies in our life. I'm not saying that we don't. We all struggle with that. But I mean, this is pretty significant. I mean, we're in a crisis of cultural understanding and valuing of our citizenship. And here, one of the leading conservative voices is begging for dual citizenship in another country. Pleading for citizenship in another country. It's like these guys that go play in Europe and they go play in Italy and then they want to, I get that. I mean, I get if you work, like, the basketball players, they do this, right? This is how Brittany Griner got caught up in the situation she was in. And I think it's ridiculous how that whole narrative was fenced. It's like, I don't know why, if Russia's our mortal enemy, and the State Department knows that we're pushing weapons up on NATO's border, but you say you care about black women's lives for some esoteric political reason, don't you want to warn black women that they shouldn't be traveling at a time when shit's going to pop off between us and Russia? I mean, did anybody from the State Department come to Brittany Griner or the WNBA and said, hey, we know that some women get paid more around the world than they do in the WNBA, and it's common for them to go seek basketball employment overseas. You guys might want to tell your women league wide, it's not safe to go to Russia. And then if you tell them that it's not safe to go to Russia, then if you go to Russia anyway to pursue money or your own professional interests, we're not coming to get you. because we're at war. But you see how transparency, or the lack thereof transparency, starts the entire situation off from a very faulty place? And I don't know how the whole Brittany Griner thing worked out, and I don't know if she was told or not that Russia was a hostile nation. I know that the Joe Biden administration was in power when Brittany Griner made the decision to go to Russia. And if they had previous knowledge that the relationship between Ukraine and Russia, or the West and Russia, was deteriorating, they could have easily sent somebody for the State Department to forewarn the WNBA or any athletes of any sport that have business there in Russia that it's no longer safe. And if they're not doing that, they're not actually governing properly. They're not governing in your interests. They're just pulling shit. They're just doing moves, and they don't care how it affects anybody else. And then they want to capitalize then they want to cash in on the political capital of going to get Brittany Griner. Yeah, you should have went and got her. Yeah, I guess you are obligated to go get her when you let your citizens travel about the world, carrying a U.S. passport, and they aren't fully aware of the dangers of enemies that we're going to go to war with. And I say that I don't agree with any of Brittany Griner's politics or the woke left that tried to, make that a big deal. I just don't agree with their worldview. But I understand what government is supposed to do. And really, when you look at it, Joe Biden getting a medal, getting any type of brownie points for bringing Brittany Griner home is a complete and utter farce. You all should have told her what the deal was before she went. That's government. That's governance. If you care so much about black women and the equality and equity of the WNBA versus the NBA, why don't you have your little CI State Department handlers walk on down to the WNBA office and say, guys, we can't go to Russia right now. And if you go, we're probably not going to be able to come get you. I mean, that might sound like a tangent, but what I'm trying to articulate here is a lot of people in the basketball world seek dual citizenship when they go play abroad. Right? Guy plays in Italy for 10 years. He's been living there. He's got a wife. She's probably Italian. And he's got a kid. Kid goes to school there, or the kid, or wife and kid are from the United States and they move there, and the kid goes to international school. And I've seen it a lot of times, right? Jelly Bean Bryant, right? Kyrie Irving's dad played overseas. We see it a lot of times in the basketball world. And to be quite honest, I don't like that. Now, going to Europe is different. Why? Because, the Atlantic Charter still provides much of the international diplomacy between us and the European Union. So even if you get jammed up and get caught in some coup d'etat there in the Eastern Bloc from some, Chechenian or whatever, terrorist cell or whatever the case may be, we still have a lot of diplomatic ties with the country, at least, that you're going to. But, all of you people out there better become more politically aware. And I say this in this episode to show you how the global affects the local. Everybody thinks it's fun and games. Everybody wants to be this posh world traveler. Everybody wants to go on a cruise, or everybody wants to, go bungee jump or skydive and Turks and Caicos or the Galapagos Islands or wherever you're going, whatever's on your little vision board for the year. Everybody wants to go somewhere else. I don't know. I grew up watching Cheers, I want to go where everybody knows my name. I know that may sound corny, but I love Cheers, and I love the theme song, and I love the premise, right? It's just a nice, wholesome little bar where it's a real sense of community. I mean, and there's so much community that there's a whole show based on the kind of interactions that would take place at such an establishment. I really like that. I mean, you'll learn over the course of this podcast. I'm not all a bite and bark guy. I'm actually kind of nice. Right, which was why I was so taken aback by Jason's actions this week. I've been nothing but nice to that man. I've been nothing but nice to the people in Fearless. I've done nothing but try to extend my knowledge and my historical research and the things that I'm willing to say that maybe others aren't to the Fearless crew and the Fearless audience. And there's going to be no more talking about Jason after this. I'm showing this video, and I mention him only because this video was sent to me, and it was just alarming. This video is so alarming, I actually, for a split moment, I thought it was artificial intelligence. I'm not going to lie. I still can't verify it. If any of you can verify it, in the comments, drop the link to the episode this came from or something like that. I'd like to watch the full context of the episode. If I'm maybe missing something, I'm sure I would gladly come back on and correct myself. But there's nothing else that he could probably say that would change the fact that I'm concerned about people who see and discuss and cash in on political conversations about the obvious crisis of American citizenship here at home, and then ask for dual citizenship in the middle of a country surrounded by all its enemies. Well, what kind of masochism do we have going on in the American culture? Shit. This has been another episode of Please Call Me Crazy, brought to you by Free People Radio and powered by our favorite sponsor, Tireget.com. That's Tireget.com. Get your tires there. You have to buy tires from somebody. You might as well buy them from us and help fund the movement, help support the movement. We believe in the freedom of movement, and that's exactly what the establishment means to take from you now. I am your host, Royce White, here from the belly of the beast, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Friday is Family and Friends with the great Professor Penn, and I look forward to that conversation. Hopefully we can hold the professor down for about 3 hours. I'd love to do a real long form for Friday so you can enjoy it in parts over the weekend if that's what you like to do. Some of you are homebodies like me, and on the weekends there is no more going out. There is no more, having a good old jolly time. I'm very slow to go out. Maybe go out to eat. Maybe go to a friend's house and have a whiskey or something like that. I'm just coming off of a 7-day cabbage diet after I did my 3-day water fast, and now I'm going to go back into a 2-day water fast to finish this first part of my diet plan, and it's been kind of brutal. The cabbage diet was brutal, especially to go through with everything that happened this past week. The cabbage is rough on the digestive system, but good for detox. But anyway, I just finished that, so hopefully I'll enjoy a nice whiskey this weekend. I haven't had a whiskey in about two months, so I do stuff like that on the weekends sometimes. Maybe a cigar now and then. Try to limit it. I don't really think smoking anything is really good for the lungs. I mean, definitively, you could probably say anything that you burn, that you inhale is not going to be great for the system. But mankind, I get, has to have some indulgences at different points in time. I'm not your priest. All right. I'm not your judge. Judge not lest you be judged. I'm your uncle. I just want to bring some sane, logical, reasonable, common sense to the discussions that are taking place all across the country and all across the world. So if you're like me and you're more of a homebody these days, I'm going to try and get a nice long podcast done for Friday with Professor Penn so you can enjoy it over the course of the weekend in different parts if you would like. And that's it for me here from the front, belly of the beast. Going to take you out with this strange art video I saw. And if you can't see it, just listen. If you can see it, if you can find the video, this is where our world's headed to, people. This is exactly where our world's headed to. These are our leaders. And you have to understand that. The fight continues. Oh, you know what? I'm not going to play the video. No, you know what? I am going to play the video. I'll put it in afterward. Okay, so we're going to end with the video. And we appreciate your viewership and listenership today and in the future. freepeopleradio.com. You can find out where you can watch and listen to the podcast. Also, there should be a link to our Patreon platform, Patreon, Donor Box, Subscribe Star, and Locals. We're still flushing out those platforms. The great Tim Gordon of the Retrograde, the Rules for Retrograde podcast, is helping us out. He has a similar patron format or tier system, and we're going to try and implement some of what he's already laid the groundwork for so we can be self-sustaining and not need to rely on people who own companies or are the founders of companies or influential at companies that beg for dual citizenship. We don't want to have to be subject to any of that type of oversight. So go to the Patreon platform and donate some money if you so choose, and shop around in our store if you so choose. Hopefully that will be up and running by tonight at midnight. I appreciate it. I appreciate you stopping by for another episode. I know we got a ton of new subscribers. If you're new, sometimes I go an hour and 30 minutes. Sometimes I go an hour. Today I went 2 hours because, hey, it's just that kind of Wednesday, right? I appreciate you all being here. I really do. I thank you for your love and support. I thank you for the people who have seen the recent conflict between me and Jason and have sent their love and support and continue to support the podcast. I'm not doing this to grow an audience for audience sake. I just want to have a conversation and be somebody who can give common sense. But to end and to head out here, I want to say, continue to pray for my dear friend Jason Whitlock and that he grow and see the truth, to see the path forward, to see the light, to see the potential that he has to really go down in history as one of the most important voices at a time where we as Americans and free people all around the world need it the most. The fight continues. Don't die a jerk off. And as always, Godspeed.